Or is the surplus that was forecasted in the spring budget in jeopardy now with $65 oil?
Well, it remains to be seen. Certainly the forecasts at that time were based on the projections of oil prices at that time, and they are now a full $10 per barrel lower. We're wrestling with that, trying to ensure that we understand the implications at this point. But clearly, it makes it more challenging to balance the budget, even in this fiscal year, let alone the fiscal year that we're facing. And so, the purpose of my comments a week or more ago at the Calgary Chamber of Commerce, and again today in Edmonton, are really to ensure that people understand the significance of the issue that we're talking about. It's easy to talk about falling oil prices, but until you actually sit down and calibrate the revenue losses in aggregate to the government of Alberta, you don't have a measure of the challenge that we face.
You've been talking for some time now about change is coming and there will be consequences. People are starting to wonder, like what? Because you're not putting flesh on the bones of that. Keep talking about there will be consequences. Like what?
Well, I've been very clear about the scale of the financial challenge that we face, and we are in the budgeting process now. And once we have wrestled it to the ground and have dealt with the implications and the recommended changes, I'll be very clear about that. But at this point, we're finishing off this fiscal year. We're being very prudent in terms of the level of expenses. The budgeting process for next year has begun, and these are issues that we will need to hear from Albertans on.
When will they start to know what you're talking about?
Well, we've only just begun the process to prepare the budget for the spring of 2015. In due course.
Justin?
Premier, when are you going to start reaching out to ministers just to get a sense of what can be cut?
Reaching out to?
Ministers.
The ministers of the government are aware of the financial circumstances that we're dealing with. They, of course, are in the process of preparing their own budget submissions. Those will be reviewed by the Minister of Finance and by myself. And so that, as I say, that work has begun.
Do you have a timeline, though, when they're actually going to be asked maybe to itemize what those cuts could be?
There'd be a great deal, given the circumstance we're in now, there'd be a great deal of work done over the holiday season.
We're going to go to the phones. Operator, please put through the next caller.
First question is from the line of James Wood with the Calgary Herald. Your line is open.
Premier, I was wondering if you could comment, and I'm sorry if you already were asked this, I missed the opening part, but the Prime Minister today said that there will be no oil and gas, greenhouse gas regulations unilaterally, so they will only act in conjunction with the United States government on a continental-wide plan. How does that, what impact, if any, does that have on the government's own climate change framework that you're planning on rolling out later this year? Is there an impact there?
I did respond, but again, clearly the Prime Minister's comments are directed at the national policy, and this is a matter that he and I will certainly discuss. We've discussed in the past, and of course, my views and his views bear similarity in terms of our concern about investment in our country. We, as Albertans, want to be environmental leaders. We also are mindful that we need to see investment and jobs created in this province. And so we are assessing the policy right now. I can tell you that I was in meetings even last evening working on this. We're assessing the Alberta climate change and environmental policies, as I promised that we would. And certainly one of the issues we have to deal with before the end of the year is the $15 per ton carbon levy, which has been in place now for close to 10 years. But under no circumstances are we going to make changes that at a very difficult time damage the investment climate or damage jobs in this province.
Two more questions.
Just to follow on that, can I ask you, how big of an issue do you think the lack of greenhouse gas regulations are on the whole pipeline issue? How much of that is causing opposition to these various pipeline projects that you cite?
Well, James, I think that's a longer question that probably you and I should discuss at length. I would never suggest that the views of a number of people on climate change doesn't have a bearing, but I think the challenges of achieving tidewater access To the West Coast, relates more directly to some of the legal and constitutional challenges that we face in British Columbia and in this country. And I think we're actually making great progress in terms of the Energy East project as a follow-up to our meetings last week with Premier Wynne and Premier Couillard. And even in terms of the Keystone project, my sense is that, as we near, at this point, we're starting to see significant increases in the bipartisan support in the United States relative to that project.
Now that you've tabled your accountability, are you going to release the salary grids for your own staff?
Yes, certainly. Last question.
When will that be?
Forthwith. I don't think there's any issue about that. So.
I just have a question on Keystone, actually. Yesterday, it was a comedy news show, of course, but the Colbert Report, President Obama was on it. And during that time, Keystone XL was a running joke the entire time. Will it get built and everything and such. The thing is that for many Canadians, for most Canadians really, it's not a joke issue. But given just the laissez-faire attitude that he showed to this project on a show such as that, does this, in your mind, show that this project is not going to get done under this presidency, even though you're talking about the bipartisanship that you're now seeing?
Well, I'm not prepared to concede that point, and I'm certainly not going to get into commentary on comedy shows on U.S. television networks. But I go back to the meeting that we had with Governor Christie this past week, who's been a very articulate, outspoken person in the U.S. political system, and he is not alone. The level of bipartisan support amongst Democrats and Republicans in the new Congress for the Keystone project is very high. It remains to be seen what transpires in January. This will turn on decisions made in the U.S. political system. I intend to be there advocating on behalf of our province, and I'm encouraged by the support. Whether this happens during President Obama's term remains to be seen, but we're certainly going to press on. And I continue to be strongly of the view that this project is clearly in the best interest of Alberta, but it's in the best interest of both Canada and the United States. And I think at the end of the day, the wisdom associated with that will carry the day.